Verse 7, and the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. Now, Shur was sort of a boundary. It was called, the word means wall, and it really was a line of forts that defended Egypt. And she is probably on her way back to her home. She was Egyptian. She's fleeing with her child, so she's probably seeking to go back to Egypt. And pausing before she gets to the border, she encounters this strange person called here the angel of the Lord. I'll come back to that in a minute. Well, and he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she says, I flee from the face of my mistress. Now, the angel of Jehovah, or Yahweh, or however you want to say it, is a term that causes a lot of puzzlement in the Scripture. It is frequently identified with God himself. You'll find that here in this chapter. You'll see him again in chapter 22, chapter 31, and right on through the Torah, many, many places. And in a number of those places, if you examine the passage carefully, it would seem that that phrase, the angel or the messenger of Jehovah, is Jehovah himself. And you watch that closely. There are other places where it is distinct from Jehovah. That gets kind of confusing, because on the one hand, it's really God. In other places, it's distinct from God. How might you, as a student, resolve that? What would be a possibility? How could somebody be God and yet be distinct from God? Christ, exactly right. John opens his gospel. In the beginning was the Word, as a title. The Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. And so forth. And so, and there's, of course, the third possibility, and that's really the one we're suggesting here, is that it's when theologians can't figure out what it really is, they give it a fancy name to cover things. So they call this a theophany. And it's a term used to designate what they call a pre-incarnate presence of Christ. And so how it's going, which of these you pick, actually all three can be true. So as we go, we're going to encounter this again and again. I thought I'd just lay that out in front. The angel of the Lord said unto her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And Ishmael means God will hear. And he mentions a multitude here. In fact, Ishmael's going to have 12 sons, just like Jacob will ultimately have. And I want you to notice, though, what he says here in verse 10, or what he says, I should say. The angel of the Lord said unto her, what does he say? I will multiply. This is one of the reasons, as you look at the grammar, you begin to get support for the idea that this is actually God speaking. And it's the more comfortable conjecture, I think, to see this as the second person of the Trinity. But let's move on.